the greatest rivalry in motorsport. Formula One is filled with rivalries, drivers battling for supremacy, teams fighting for dominance, egos clashing on and off the track. But no rivalry in motorsport history has ever been as intense, dramatic, and unforgettable as the one between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost. So let's dive into the story of how two legends of the sport became both each other's greatest rival and each other's defining force. In the 1980s, Formula One was evolving. Technology was advancing, cars were faster, and drivers were pushing themselves to the absolute limit. By the mid-80s, Alain Prost, a French driver known as the Professor, was already a dominant force. His nickname wasn't just for show. Prost was meticulous, calculating, and incredibly consistent. He didn't take unnecessary risks, but he knew how to play the long game. His ability to think strategically during races made him one of the most intelligent drivers the sport had ever seen. On the other side was Ayrton Senna, the young Brazilian who had burst onto the scene with blistering speed and unmatched raw talent. Senna wasn't about playing the long game. He was about racing with his heart. Every lap was a battle, every overtake a statement. Senna's driving style was aggressive, daring, and often on the edge of what seemed possible. From the moment Senna arrived in Formula One, fans knew he was special. His qualifying pace was otherworldly. He could take a car and push it beyond its limits in ways nobody else could. It was only a matter of time before these two drivers, each brilliant in their own way, would collide. The rivalry truly began in 1988, when both Prost and Senna found themselves driving for the same team, McLaren. And this wasn't just any team, it was the best car on the grid. The McLaren Honda MP4 was nearly unbeatable. That year, the car won 15 out of 16 races, making it one of the most dominant machines in Formula One history. For Senna, this was the opportunity of a lifetime. For Prost, it was a chance to cement his legacy. But when you put two of the greatest drivers in the same car, only one can come out on top. Senna immediately set the tone. His qualifying performances were jaw-dropping. Out of 16 races in 1988, Senna started on pole 13 times. Prost, while consistently fast, often found himself a step behind on Saturdays. But Sundays were different. Prost's calm, measured approach often brought him results, while Senna's aggressive style sometimes led to mistakes. Yet, by the end of the season, it was Senna who won the championship, his first of 3 titles. For Prost, it was a bitter pill to swallow. He had scored more points overall that season, but due to the scoring system at the time, only the best 11 results counted. That rule handed the title to Senna. From that moment, the rivalry was born. If 1988 was about respect, 1989 was about war. By this point, the relationship between Senna and Prost had completely soured. Prost felt that Senna was reckless and dangerous. Senna believed Prost was political and manipulative, using his influence with team management and officials to gain an advantage. Their tension boiled over during the 1989 Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. The championship was on the line. Prost led the standings, but Senna could still take the title if he won. Late in the race, Senna tried to pass Prost at the chicane. The two collided, locking wheels and going off track. Prost climbed out of his car immediately, convinced the championship was his. But Senna, determined as ever, got marshals to push his car back onto the track. He rejoined, overtook Alessandro Nannini, and crossed the line first. For a moment, it looked like Senna had pulled off one of the greatest comebacks in history. But then came the controversy. The FIA disqualified Senna, claiming he had illegally rejoined the track. The title was handed to Prost. For Senna, this was a betrayal. He accused Prost and FIA President Jean-Marie Balestre of conspiring against him. For Prost, it was vindication, proof that Senna's recklessness had no place in Formula One. The rivalry was now personal. The very next year, 1990, both men had moved on to different teams. Prost had joined Ferrari, while Senna remained at McLaren. Once again, the championship battle came down to the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. And once again, it was Senna versus Prost. This time, Senna was furious before the race had even started. He had qualified on pole, but was placed on the dirtier side of the track after officials denied his request to move to the clean racing line. Senna believed this was yet another example of politics working against him. When the lights went out, Prost got the better start and pulled ahead. But Senna wasn't going to let history repeat itself. At the very first corner, Senna refused to back down. He kept his foot planted, and the two collided at high speed. Both cars spun out, both drivers were eliminated from the race, and Senna was crowned world champion. It was revenge served in the most dramatic way possible. For Senna, it was justice. For Prost, it was proof that Senna was willing to risk everything, even safety, to win. The rivalry had now become legendary. The battles between Senna and Prost continued into the early 1990s, but Prost retired after winning his fourth world championship in 1993. By then, the tension between the two had cooled. When Senna joined Williams in 1994, he spoke openly about missing Prost. In fact, during the 1994 Brazilian Grand Prix, Senna even said in an interview that he wished Prost were still racing so they could continue their battles. Tragically, just a few weeks later, Ayrton Senna lost his life in a crash at Imola. His death shocked the world and changed Formula One forever. One of the first people to pay tribute was Alain Prost. He carried Senna's coffin at the funeral and later admitted that Ayrton had been the most important rival of his career. In many ways, they defined each other. Without Prost, Senna's story wouldn't be complete. And without Senna, Prost's greatness might never have been pushed to its limits. The rivalry between Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost wasn't just about racing, it was about philosophy. Two drivers with completely different approaches to life and competition, pushing each other to the edge. Senna represented passion, instinct, and the pursuit of perfection. Prost represented intelligence, calculation, and the mastery of strategy. Together, they created a rivalry that shaped Formula One, inspired generations, and still captures the imagination of fans decades later. Senna and Prost may have fought bitterly on the track, but in the end, their rivalry gave us some of the most unforgettable moments in Formula One history. So, what do you think? Was Senna versus Prost truly the greatest rivalry in motorsport? Or is there another one that deserves that title? If you enjoyed this deep dive into F1 history, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss more stories from the world of Formula One.